Last year, new automobiles accounted for 1/3 of all the inflation in America because the auto companies couldn't get the computer chips. The price of an automobile skyrocketed. And now, second big reason for inflation is Vladimir Putin and gas prices. Not a joke.
Well, joining us now is Montana Congressman Matt Rosendale to break down some of what is reality here. Congressman, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, Bianca.
Well, certainly it is no joke to Americans who are having trouble paying their bills. As we just said, Congressman, the Fed's going to try and raise some rates this week to calm inflation. But it's kind of a dangerous situation because we're at such historic highs. It won't be a simple exit. Congressman, Biden's policies obviously have gotten us here, and he does not want to admit it. How can we even solve a problem that they don't want to admit they caused with policies?
I think everyone knows that the first step towards solving a problem is to admit that there actually is one. The biggest problem that I see is that all of this is very solvable. When it comes to our energy crisis, we were at our peak production producing domestically about 13 million barrels of crude oil a day. And now, because of the actions by this administration, that's been reduced to about 11 million barrels a day. It's very unfortunate that TransCanada Corporation didn't place Hunter Biden on the board of their directors to make sure that they could keep the permit in place for the Keystone XL pipeline. I think that probably would have been a much better investment than paying all the legal fees that they have and still not being able to keep the pipeline in place. That would have produced about 800,000 barrels a day of crude, not only from Canada, but also from the Montana, North Dakota region as well. There was going to be an on-ramp. So we would have had the production, we would have had the tax revenue, we would have had the supplies going into the global marketplace and helping us keep those prices down instead of purchasing 600,000 barrels a day of Russian crude. We're delighted to see that legislation come forward to stop and halt the imports of crude oil from Russia, and we immediately saw the price of crude start going down as the global market started seeing some activity. It's all about supply and demand, and that supply is still going to be available out there. We just want to make sure that Biden doesn't go around and pick another tyrant to try and fill that void from and starts going back to the domestic production.
Clearly, you're referring to Venezuela and Iran, which we are in talks with, and it does seem ludicrous that that was be where we are kind of heading towards. And why not release some more of the strategic oil reserves, Congressman?
The strategic oil reserves are available to us in case we actually enter into a time of war. That's what they're really for. And to drain those to provide 3 days or a week's worth of relief on gasoline prices is ridiculous. That's not what they were there for, especially when we have the ability to produce this oil domestically and not have to tap into those reserves. All we have to do is have the administration, again, put the permit back in place for Keystone XL and allow the leasing on federal lands that the courts have ordered him to open up anyway.
And not only that, we talk a lot about Keystone. There's also oil and the Mediterranean pipe that Israel was working on. That was also killed by this administration. I mean, Congress, Jen Psaki yesterday saying they're trying to take steps to mitigate, reduce it. The president saying he will personally now engage with big global producers or look at a range of domestic options. Is this just rhetoric, or is there any hope of reality happening here?
I do believe that with $4 gasoline and $5.50 diesel fuel, that there is such an outcry coming from the public right now that they're going to have to start making some of these decisions. Again, I just hope that we can produce this oil domestically instead of going to places like Venezuela, like Iran, like Saudi Arabia to go ahead and fill our needs, because it is readily available right here. And we can ramp up that production fast as long as the president gets out of the way.
Yeah, there are reports already that Chevron is looking to make some deals with Venezuela already. So I know you'll be watching that. It's obviously very key to see where our companies are heading to in that direction. Before we let you go, Congressman, I want to ask you about Ukrainian President Zelensky addressing Congress tomorrow. As we just heard him minutes ago talking to Canada, still asking for that no-fly zone. You know, a lot of people say we still can't go there. It would be too much, and it would engage us into something that we cannot get into as the U.S.
So what is taking place right now in the Ukraine is tragic. We're seeing a loss of life, and we are seeing people that are being pushed out of their homes and a lot of suffering. But the United States cannot enter into assisting a no-fly zone over the Ukraine. That would put us in direct conflict with Russia, and I personally would not support such actions. It's not smart at all.
Well, Congressman, we appreciate your time. Obviously, there's a lot our country has to deal with and fix here at home. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Bianca.